It's now time for our weekly catch-up with DC and the Capstone Report. DC, welcome into the Blitz. How you doing this morning?
Doing great, Martin. Thanks for having me on again this week.
Always a pleasure. Well, let's get right into the conversation. We got I say it's the official end of the sports world, so now we have to this is when we really make our money as hosts and as podcasters and broadcasters. So I think you got a very interesting conversation you guys are going to be talking about on the Capstone Report, so we'll bring that in with our weekly conversation. You can find the podcast of the DC Capstone Report at goldenshoresproductions.com. It is posted each Monday about midday or so. That is where you can find it, goldenshoresproduction.com. Let's get right into the conversation. You know, a lot of conversation was made about the coaching changes with Nick Saban in Alabama, and you know, a lot of people talked about the mainstay of Kirby Smart being with Nick Saban. Well, he moved past that. A lot of people talked about the different defensive coordinators and different offensive coordinators, but there's been one mainstay that has not changed, and that's Scott Cochran. And just talk a little bit about what Scott Cochran means to this Alabama team as a whole in the program, and then we'll get specifics on some of the conditioning programs.
Yeah, Martin, I think Scott Cochran has been a common denominator on how good the Alabama teams have been over the years under Nick Saban, and I think it's important to know how Scott Cochran got there. Scott Cochran, native of Louisiana, got his degree at LSU. Was working in the high school system there when he came back to LSU as a grad assistant, and then Nick Saban hired him as a strength coach there. Was a strength coach for him there in 2003. He did a great job for him. And, of course, as you know, as Saban went on to the NFL, Coach Cochran went into other endeavors. But when Coach Saban came back out as coach of Alabama, it doesn't amaze me that he went right for the strength coach that he wanted. At that time, Coach Cochran was coaching for the Charlotte Hornets in basketball. And the story goes that Coach Cochran was actually in Atlanta for an Atlanta Hawks game with the Hornets when he got the phone call that Coach Saban wanted to interview him for the strength coach job at the University of Alabama. And the story is that when Coach Saban wants to interview you, he means right now. And so he had already contacted the owner and the coach of the Hornets. So as soon as the game was over with, Scott Cochran could find his way to Tuscaloosa from Atlanta. And one of the stories that's so unique and funny is that Scott Cochran all he had packed with him was I understand sweatpants and things for the Hornets Hornets t-shirts, and had to go in the middle of the night and start looking for a suit, and the only place that was open was Walmart. So he put together a suit from Walmart and came over and interviewed and was hired on the spot by Coach Saban. So he found the guy he had worked with before, the one he had trust in, confidence in, and I think it's been well received at the University of Alabama. I don't think people give him credit. We talk about a lot his loudness, his way he talks and the way he screams, way he holds up his hands, those type of things. We talk about him being the highest paid strength coach there is, but there's a lot more to Scott Cochran in putting together the fourth quarter program, and we have seen that translate on the field. You know, a lot of the teams, they say imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. A lot of teams have held up four fingers at the end of the third quarter. But the team that started that was Alabama long before Nick Saban got there. That was one of Alabama's things that they did, being prideful to be in there in the fourth quarter. And I think Nick Saban took that to a whole different level of being dominant in the fourth quarter.
Well, you know, one of the interesting things, and we'll talk about that fourth quarter program, but when I came here, we had what was called Lower Gym. They didn't call it fourth quarter, but they called it Lower Gym. And the 1992 team was the last class to go through the Lower Gym in the way that we went through the Lower Gym. And, of course, you fast forward as freshmen. We went through it as freshmen. And then they modified and changed it. And it's not that it was anything less, but it was a different thing when we went through Lower Gym compared to some of the other things we went through. Rich Wingo was our strength coach. who had been under Coach Bryant. So, it's more than conditioning that comes out of that fourth quarter program. What do you think separates that fourth quarter program from so many others?
Well, I think it's more than strength. It is strength and conditioning. You're correct, and I know that translates on the field. But I think one of the things that translates on the field is the mental toughness that comes out of those fourth quarter programs. I believe it's a pushing, as I've said on your show before. Coach Bryant believed in pushing in practice in the strength and conditioning area, especially in the conditioning, the running. And I know if you were there with Rich Wingo, you did experience as close to Scott Cochran you could get as far as the running until you quit. Coach Brown always believed he wanted you to quit in practice. If you were going to quit on him, he didn't want you to quit in the game. And that kind of translates over into what Coach Saban and Coach Cochran are doing in the fourth quarter program. They're instilling mental toughness, being able to think even when you're too tired to think, and being able to make decisions even when you're too tired to make decisions and make the right decisions. So I think the biggest thing that comes out of it is discipline, self-control, and mental toughness, along with the strength and conditioning that you see. You know, Alabama players are strong. Alabama players are fit fourth quarter, but they also have been able to overcome adversity. When it's easy to make mistakes when you're tired, and I think Alabama is disciplined, is conditioned to be able to make the right decisions even when you're tired, even when you're ready to quit, and not quit. I think that's important.
Yeah, it was all about the mental toughness. They had the big gray trash cans with the heat on and the doors closed, and they blew the whistle. You didn't stop till they blew the final whistle for you to stop. And that was at least going to be a 60-minute nonstop, all-out movement. And the trash cans were there. The joke was freshmen would always come in and say, "What are the trash cans for?" And the response was always, "Don't worry, you won't have to ask in a little bit." So, but you go back and look and see how seldom you see an Alabama team carry a lead into the fourth quarter and lose that lead. And that, as you say, goes back to not just Coach Saban or not Coach Stallings or any other coaches, but that goes all the way back to at least I know Coach Bryant, and probably beyond that time as well. Let's switch over to what Coach Cochran does for this program in the summer, because to me, this is probably as critical as what he does in the conditioning program in the offseason and keeping the guys strong and fit during the fall season and the offseason and then spring. He is the, I guess, controller of the program during the summer, because he's the one that has all the access to them. He's the one that has to be in there, and I believe that that's probably his greatest value.
I agree. I think the way Coach Cochran, he's kind of the face of this program during the summer, because as you know, in the NCAA rules, he's the only coach on the field with them during this training times, and he's kind of the face of the program. But I think the way he has integrated the strength and conditioning staff that he has, along with Amy Bragg there, who does the nutritional side of it with Alabama Sports, which doesn't get enough credit for what she does in the program. And looking at the trainers, and they were all working together to get the optimal performance out of the athlete. I think Scott Cochran does that, but he works along with every one of those to get the best performance out of each athlete that he has. I think a part of that also in the summer is like you said earlier, it is push you to the limit, and then make you go past that limit to see your full potential. And I think if you look at the last 2 weeks, if you've seen anything about going on in Alabama, there's not been any many stories coming out of it, because I think each and every time you see the summer workouts, they're so focused on doing those summer workouts and getting them right, they don't have time to do anything else other than that and going to class. So some of the things that they've been doing, the up downs have been around forever, but somehow each player will tell me, they'll say, "Hey, I don't know how he does it, but Coach Cochran's up downs got to be tougher than anybody else." The running the stadium steps have been around forever, but you'll hear these guys who've been through it, and they'll say, "I don't know how he does it, but running the stadium steps, the way he does it, it's got to be tougher than anywhere else." And you see these people that's gone on for other teams, like the pro teams, to hear Jonathan Allen and Julio Jones, Ryan Anderson, Clinton Dix, those people talk. They'll tell you, to be under a strength conditioning program in Alabama and then go to a pro, you expect you were going up, but actually you're not. They had to come up with strength and conditioning programs on their own time to rise to the same level that they had when they were in Alabama. So I think that says something for Scott Cochran, the program he's built there.
Absolutely. Speaking with DC, Capstone Report, you can find it on Golden Shores Production, GoldenShoresProduction.com. Switching gears over to, I call him it's probably going to be the forgotten hero of sorts, talking about running back Josh Jacobs. Alabama's going to be extremely deep at that position, but Josh Jacobs is a guy who is a special talent. How will Nick Saban keep this young man engaged in the 2018 season, and what do you see in this young player?
Well, two things there. That's one of the things we're going to touch on today on the podcast. Gary and I are going to discuss our running back situation, how fortunate we are. Fortunate with Damian Harris coming back, and then having also Najee Harris with so much experience. But not only that, just looking at Josh Jacobs, the individual that he is, he had a great freshman year, and everybody was so high on him after that freshman year. He came in and contributed in ways to the passing game and other ways, being that just change of pace back that we didn't expect. Did a great thing. But as you say, he's kind of a forgotten man at this point because of his sophomore season. He didn't participate as much, but that had to do more with his injuries. And I think we found out late in the season that he was playing injured pretty much every time that he did play, and his production went down because of that. I think during the offseason he's been able to correct that with the different procedures that he's had done. I see him coming back for this time this year to make a big impact. And one reason I believe that is, our depth at running back is going to be probably four people that's had any playing time at all. You got your fifth player coming in, Jerome Ford, who we'll talk a little bit about today, a freshman who has an opportunity to come in and contribute because, we've always had those 4 or 5 backs that play sometime during the season. And then, of course, we got Damian Harris and Najee Harris. It'll be 1 and 2, probably going into the workouts in the summer and coming out of that practice. They'll probably both be playing a good amount of time. And then Brian Robinson will contribute. But, it could have been, you could have had Damian Harris going to pro and not coming back, and then you'd have been left with those running backs. So I think it's going to be a critical year in our running backs, but for another reason as well. And that is going to be the running backs coach who we've had there, who has been that stalwart in that position since Coach Saban has been there. Burton Burns, he's gone into another position, off-field coaching position, and you got Joe Panuzio coming in. Well, I think that's going to bode well for Josh Jacobs, Jerome Ford, Brian Robinson, those players who hadn't got as much playing time. If you know anything about Joe Panuzio, he has a talent for looking and finding the best in players and then making that best in players show up and translate into games and in the game type situations. I don't know if any of the listeners out there know this, but he was the coach at Miami that found a basketball player on the basketball team at Miami and decided, hey, he had talent. And after he used his last time in basketball eligibility, he had a year left. Got him on the football team, developed him into one of the best tight ends in college football, who went on to play, and has been an all-pro for the New Orleans Saints and the Seattle Seahawks team. I'm talking about Jimmy Graham. So Joe Panuzio has a talent for going in and finding people, has a knack for finding people that he can use. I think he can use Josh Jacobs in this offense. Between him, Dan Enos, and Mike Loxley, I think the overall game plan will be able to use Josh Jacobs is that versatile all-purpose back who is coming out of the backfield for catching passes, who has the ability to be that change of pace back and make a big difference in this year. So I look for him to contribute a lot more, not only because of his injuries behind him, but also because of the way that he can be used by the scheme this year.